Welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I'm getting to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there, to stay in that leadership lane? And today, oh my goodness, I have another special guest. Her name is Bronwyn Allen. She is the president and CEO of High Profile Inc. And I am so excited to have you on the show. Hey, Bronwyn.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you. I was actually reflecting back to the first time we met. And I don't know if you remember this, but we met years ago at a Dallas HR luncheon. You've always been very active in Dallas HR, as well as your team. And we met, and I remember thinking of the presence you had. You came over and you said, hey, let's meet for coffee. We later met for coffee over off by the tollway. Do you remember that?
I was going to say, I thought it was Starbucks, but you're right. It was Dallas HR before we met at Starbucks. Yep.
Yeah, no. And I've always, yeah, absolutely. I've always admired your leadership. And of course, you know, you have an incredible team. I know Callie Miller, the future of Dallas HR, the upcoming president, of course. And then you have an author on your team, Kirsten Fassler. And so an amazing team. So I've known your team for a long time, and I'm excited to have you on the show. Hey, I want to kind of start, and I would love for you to share just a brief highlight for those who don't know, who is High Profile and how do you serve your customers?
Thanks for the question, Bruce. I'd love to chat about High Profile because it's something very passionate about. I've actually been involved with the company for over 3 decades now. Of course, I started very, very young, but we take our work. Our mission is we're a company with a heart, and we are in operation every day to change lives. And what we do as a recruiting firm is we help people find their next step in their career. And we've fortunately had so many long-term relationships with different businesses in the DFW area that when we interview with people, we really try to get to know them and figure out where would that next step be best for them. And then when we know our clients so well, we're able to make matches for them. And it's just such a rewarding job because you get, feedback from the people that you've placed, and they say, oh my gosh, this company's amazing. I've already gotten promoted, or, now I'm so excited. I'm taking on a new role or a new project. And it's all because they had the connection with High Profile, and they were either referred to us, or they maybe just moved into town and they heard about us, and we were able to help them out with that career move. So we do accounting and finance placement, human resources placement, and administrative support, and all over the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
That is absolutely fantastic. I love how you use the words changing lives and how rewarding that is. I can just imagine what it's like to help someone that is looking for their next step, and then you being able to help them find that and being part of that process. That's awesome. Hey, there was something I was reading on your LinkedIn profile about High Profile, and that was you have something on there about the importance of certifications. I think you have some staff members that have their PHR, SPHR, and you had a fun fact there, and it says less than 5% of the staffing industry has an HR certification.
That is correct. And we've done certifications both on the industry, so the staffing industry side, and then also on the human resource side. So most every recruiter on our team has some type of certification. So that just means they're current on all hiring practices, human resources laws. We actually have a lot of clients that'll reach out to us. Maybe they have smaller HR departments, and they'll reach out to us and say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Help me, guide me through it. I know you've got your certifications. And so it's been awesome that our team we send them to conferences. We send them to get certified. They love to grow. They love to learn. So we keep trying to support them in all those efforts as much as we can.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Hey, we're going to talk certification. We're going to talk about growing our people. We're going to talk about recruiting and all things leadership. But I want to start with the Bronwyn Allen story. I mean, I know a little bit, but I would love for you to share with our listeners, where did you grow up and how in the world did you get into leadership and now 3 decades at your company? That's incredible.
It is. I feel just so grateful, Bruce, for the journey that I've had so far. It's been amazing. And where did I grow up? I really grew up all over the place. My dad, people always ask me, was your dad in the military? He wasn't. He was in sales and marketing. But because of his skills, we got moved around quite a bit. And so by the time I was 18, I had moved 11 different times. Had moved 2 different places in New Jersey, 2 different places in Mississippi, lived in Nicaragua, lived in Mexico. South Carolina. So really all around, moved around quite a bit with him growing up. But when I look back on that, that was the best experience, because I don't meet a stranger. You can put me in a room full of people and I'm gonna meet somebody and we're gonna become good friends by the end of the night. And I think it helped because I had to go to a lot of different schools. I had to kind of start and stop as I was growing in different neighborhoods as I was growing up. So that was definitely part of my story. My mother also was a huge motivator for me. She loved Zig Ziglar. And so since the time I was very, very young, I grew up listening to Zig Ziglar tapes, and actually got to see him when I was 15 years old at LSU. He was speaking at a conference there and I got to see him. And then when I moved to Dallas later, I found out that he lived in Dallas. And of course I wanted to meet him. I actually started going to Prestonwood Baptist Church so I could go to his encouragers class every Sunday and sit near him and go to lunch afterwards. And oh my gosh, I would say he was a huge influence on my life and just helped me kind of get the mindset that, you know what, it's all about helping other people, developing other people. And then in turn, there's so much blessing and so much reward in it for yourself when you help others. But he was definitely a guiding force for me as I grew up and then moved to Dallas. When I moved to Dallas, I literally sent my resume to a friend, and she said, there's this small staffing company just started in business. I don't even know what kind of jobs they have. Why don't you go see them? Bring your resume. And I did. And they said, you know what? We think you'd be a good recruiter. They had just started 3 months earlier. And so I thought, well, I'll do this for a year or two, see what this recruiting is all about. And just realized I loved it. And so here I am, over 30 years later, just as you mentioned, we've got an incredible team. The people that come to work at High Profile are very passionate about what they do. They're passionate about helping people with their careers, about listening, getting to know them. And so we all come from that same desire to help move people forward. And it's just been a wonderful journey. I feel like I'm just sort of getting started, because actually back in late 2019, I bought the company. I had ownership in the company. And in 2019, I bought the company from the founder and my business partner, Jock Stafford. And so now I am the sole business owner of this company after 30 years. And so just kind of feeling like we're now, in a whole different lane and excited about it.
I love that. I love everything about that. I was actually thinking about Zig Ziglar. I'm a big fan of Zig Ziglar, and I was thinking about, he might have been the one that said this, but if he didn't, I know he said it before, but he said, when you find the work you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And you sound like that person who found your lane early on. And I'm just curious if I have a couple of questions around that, but first question I want to ask you is, like, how did you know you loved recruit? Like you went in and accepted that job, you got into recruiting. How did you know, like, you love that?
I think for me, it was back in actually 1997, I read a book called The Path by Lori Beth Jones. And the whole book is about finding your mission, your mission in life, your mission for your career. And through reading that book, I discovered why I was put here on planet Earth. And that is to encourage, motivate, and inspire people to believe in themselves. And I have that opportunity every single day at High Profile to do that. So it's not necessarily that it's just the recruiting piece of it. It's just that I'm able to encourage, motivate, and inspire people, whether they work on our team, whether they're clients that we've met, or job seekers, or people in the community. I get to utilize that mission every day. And it just seems to fit in perfectly with recruiting, because that, other than, what spouse you choose or maybe what house you buy, your career career is a pretty big decision in your life. And in most cases, people will switch jobs at different, or not necessarily jobs, but they'll switch companies over the course of their career. So having having a recruiter in your back pocket and somebody you trust and somebody you can work with is invaluable. And I love being a part of that.
I'd like to talk about purpose. I like to frame it up, finding your lane. And I love how you said that from the start. You said, I want to encourage people. I want to motivate them. I want to inspire them to believe in themselves. I absolutely love that. So you read that book, obviously that's made a big impact on your life, but then you had to go through the process. You didn't start out as the CEO, you started out as a recruiter. So you went through and I'm sure you had some challenges. You had a lot of successes along the way. When did you know, okay, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm going to do this as long as I can. When did you know you found your calling?
I think knowing that I was going to stay with high profile was something that took a little time because I really had to grow into the roles that I had. I had such an incredible mentor in the founder of the company, Jock Stafford. And when he worked with me over the years, he really wanted to expose me to different roles in the company. So he wanted me to work in recruiting roles, then to work in sales roles, then to get into leadership and management. And I'll tell you, Bruce, every step of the way, I kept wondering, I don't know if I can do this, But fortunately, he believed in me before I believed in myself. He saw the skills, the qualities, the abilities. And that to me was such a gift. And I feel like that's what I pass on now. I have got, some people, newer people in their career on my team. And I love to say, you know what, you may not realize that this is something you could do, but I see it in you. I see that you could do this. And just they light up. And so for me, I had that opportunity. I had that belief in me before I did. And then I think over time, I started to grow into it and say, wow, yeah, this is something I could see myself doing this for the rest of my career because it's so fulfilling. And I have the opportunity every day to impact lives with this.
What's so special about that is that Jock instilled that in you so you could instill that in others. And not everybody gets that early on. They have to kind of work through that process. I would love to ask you, you mentioned Zig Ziglar, who was encouragement class. Now you're mentioning Jock. I love to talk about mentors because I think mentors are what really guide us through our career. And it seems to me that high performers that are on life and leadership lane, they all have a common thread, and that is they really cherish their mentors. And I would love for you to just share. It sounds like Jock was an incredible mentor. Were there others that have helped you along the way?
Yeah, great question, Bruce, because I've been really fortunate to have some great mentors. Early on, when we were just a couple of years into the business at High Profile, I had a mentor who was in Dallas. Her name was Linda McLaughlin, and she owned a recruiting firm, but they did direct hire placement. And at the time we did temporary placement. Well, she said, Bronwyn, there's enough business in this town for both of us. Let's get together. Let's get together once a month. And we got to get together for breakfast. We ate blueberry pancakes. We had so much fun, and we talked about business. She taught me about her business. I taught her about what we were doing at High Profile, and we ended up calling each other sister companies because we worked so closely together and taught each other what we knew. And that to me was just it was a mutually beneficial mentorship relationship. It's almost like a peer-to-peer, which I found has been incredible, is finding peers or friends or other business owners that are a couple steps ahead, and maybe they can share some of their experiences, some of their mistakes they've made, some of the pains that they've had. And so you don't have to experience it in the same way, and you can kind of have a heads up. So definitely I've had Linda as a great mentor. I also have always been involved in different, whether you call them business owner groups or mastermind groups or CEO network groups, where there's a small, intimate group, sort of your inner circle, and they are your personal board of advisors. Those are people that you trust, that you can share issues with. And they may not be in the exact same business, but they know the similar struggle, and they can share ideas. And I walk away from those types of meetings just feeling so fulfilled, because hopefully I've been able to bring something to the table, but truly I've gained so much from other people's experiences.
That's interesting because those groups don't just happen. Like you have to be intentional, right? You have to be intentional about attending those groups and going not just to learn, but to bring ideas and really invest in those groups along the way. I love the connection with Linda because and by the way, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you need to get out your pen, get out your journal. There are so many nuggets here. I was thinking about Linda. So she's a competitor, but yet you're connecting and sharing. And I would love to, just for those who may not know, what is the difference between a direct hire and a temporary placement?
Sure, thanks. It's a good question. A direct hire is when a company says we are hiring let's say we're hiring a VP of HR and we want to interview and we really want them to start as soon as possible. So you're basically setting up the right candidate for interview for a full-time, long-term position. Temp is where a client would say, we need somebody to come in to cover maternity leave, or we need somebody because we've got our accounting department, they have some people out on vacation, we need somebody in for a couple of weeks. So the temp is that's how we started our company, is we were just solely temporary placement. Then after meeting Linda and doing some research, we decided, heck, we can do direct hire also. And so now we do temp to hire and direct hire, and have for many, many years. But I don't think we would have got there so much faster if we didn't have that relationship with Linda and she wasn't willing to share and open, and we weren't able to help each other out at the time that we did. So it was great.
What a blessing. What a blessing. I absolutely love that. Oh my gosh. People make the difference, right? And the people that we meet along the way. But like I said, you had to have like the courage to step out and find these groups and talk to these different people. And what's interesting is I still see you out there today. I mean, you're at the top level, but yet you still understand the importance of continuing to network and grow with others. Hey, I want to ask you a question. So, here we are, we're in 2021, second half of the year. 2020 was absolutely a very, very difficult time for a lot of people, very heavy time. And I know we're not out of the pandemic, but certainly navigating through that. But I want to ask you, first question I want to ask you is, when people talk about leadership, they all seem to have this different definition. I would love for you to share, like, if somebody says, hey, Bronwyn, what's leadership to you? How would you share that?
Sure. Well, it pretty much goes back to my mission and why I feel like my purpose is. To me, leadership is helping others learn to believe in themselves and their God-given talents and abilities. Because if they can do that, then they can really find their lane. And they may need help, just like I did. They may need help with that confidence. They may need somebody to believe in them first before they do, and to convince them that, yeah, they've got that gem inside them. They just need to cultivate it. So to me, that's what leadership is truly about, helping that person become the best version of themselves.
I love that. Oh, that is so fantastic. Well, let me ask you this, since we've gone through this pandemic and now we're finding ourselves kind of working through on the other side, or working through it actually. Have you seen your leadership shift at all? Are you seeing yourself lead any differently?
Yes, I had to, as a leader, as all leaders did during COVID, when we had to all of a sudden become a virtual leader versus, in person. That was just, I used to love walking up and down the hallways and connecting with everybody, but I was seeing them in person, obviously. And then once COVID hit, we had to figure out how to do this over our laptop, and that was a little bit different. So, and I go back to just having such an amazing team, because our team transitioned overnight. The leadership team of High Profile overnight transitioned to, okay, let's utilize this technology that we have. Let's figure out how to become virtual leaders. Let's figure out where the gaps are. What are we missing? What do we need to do to improve this experience? Let's survey our employees. Let's talk to our employees. Let's read. Let's really take in best practice ideas from other firms that have been virtual before us and learn from them. And so I've had to do all the same thing myself. And I would say I am still every single day learning and trying to figure all this out.
I think we all are continuing to learn and grow and trying to figure out how we can do things, how we can adapt, how we can be more agile. I love that. Okay, so during this time when you're going through this virtual and you're trying to, navigate and trying to figure out new ways, how did you continue to like coach your team up? I mean, you talked earlier about you're walking up and down the hallway, right? And I love that, by the way, walking through the crowd, you're always connecting with people. I can see you doing that, but virtually it's much more difficult. How are you able to coach your team up and continue to help them navigate?
It is such a stronger challenge for me because I think in person, it was a lot easier. You literally could be just going back to the kitchen to get your coffee and you could have a whole conversation with somebody about what they did over the weekend and connect with them, or maybe something that they're really excited about they could share with you. Well, now, since it's in a virtual environment, everything has to be a lot more intentional. You've got to be intentional about, and so what I did was I transitioned to having regular one-on-one meetings with people, like every Tuesday at 2, we get together, or every Wednesday morning at 9, that's our check-in time. It's not to say we can't check in at other times, but that's our specific time for just you and me to check in and figure out what's going on in your world. And so I think just being more intentional about the whole leadership thing, whereas before in person, you didn't have to be quite as intentional. And that's number one. Number two is truly trying to, because you can't read body language as well. You can't see everything you could see before. So now you really got to ask questions and listen even more intently, truly to try to figure out where they are. If you're talking about COVID, we all know that was a stressful time for everybody for a lot of different reasons. So trying to understand too, that even though I'm talking to this person about what's going on with their desk and their responsibilities that week, there's also a whole current of underlying things that are going on that could be extremely stressful. A lot of those presented during the COVID season, and some of them we're still dealing with.
Yeah, I tell you, we saw a lot of changes, like especially like you're meeting virtually and you might, someone might have to take a break because their kids are at home or something going on. I love that. But you said two things. Number one, you said you have to be intentional. I love that because you're right. Sometimes if we're at the workplace, we can just walk outside our office and just go down the hall and talk to one of our team members. And when you're in a virtual environment, you've got to set that up. And then number two, reading body language. And you said asking questions. I just got through finished reading the book, The Coaching Habit. Have you ever read that? It's by Michael Bungay Stanier. It's absolutely incredible. And one of the things that I talked to one of your team members about a while back was they said the thing about Bronwyn is she is very curious. She asks a lot of questions. And I said, I can see that. I want to ask you, where did that come from?
I think it came from my experience at High Profile, because I started out in the recruiting seat. And as a recruiter, you've got to ask a lot of questions to get to know the person you're interviewing and to try to determine if they might be a good fit for your client and a good fit for some of the job opportunities that you have. And once I realized by asking questions, I could find out so much information. To me, it became a natural thing that I almost have to stop myself not to ask so many questions, because I don't want people to feel like they're being interviewed all the time. If I just, meet them at a coffee shop, I really want to share and have some collaboration together. But I go into that natural realm of asking questions really easily now because I've had to do it for so many years in the interview process.
Well, let's talk recruiting for a few minutes. I want to ask you this. I was talking to a talent acquisition leader working for a corporate company not too long ago, and he talked about how difficult recruiting is today. And so I'd love to hear your perspective on, how is recruiting more challenging today, or what are you seeing out there in the market?
It is much more challenging today. And I'll tell you what's happening with us, at least, is a lot of our candidates are seeking remote work opportunities. At the same time, a lot of companies are going back into the office. So the first question is there flexibility for remote work, or do I have to be in the office 5 days a week? And some clients are very flexible. They're doing this hybrid model where you can come in maybe 3 days a week and work from home 2 days a week. Other companies are not. They've got that huge office space and they want everybody back back in the office. So we're dealing with that now, which we never did in the past, because rarely were people working from home full time. They were maybe working from home one day a week, if that at all. But now, since everybody was working home for an entire year, a lot of people got used to it. They loved it. They loved, saving their commute time or whatever it is that the benefit was that it brought to them. So that's been real difficult. So that's just first figuring out, is there any remote flexibility? And then secondly, the market has picked up so much now, Bruce, that it is a job seekers market. They're having multiple offers at the same time. So we just had a recruiters meeting this morning, and a lot of the candidates that we're presenting, if the client doesn't make an offer to them pretty quickly, more than likely they're going to have some job opportunities and offers that they're receiving on their own. So it is very fast paced right now. And it's a continual effort on our part to educate and talk with our clients and make sure that we give them as much information and support them as much as we can so they can make a quick decision, because otherwise we're losing candidates right and left to other opportunities.
Yeah, that is such a good information there. So those that are listening now, if you are hiring job seekers, it's a job seekers market. And so if, making them offer, you need to hire them quickly. Hey, I want to look from a candidate's perspective. I would love for you to share what would a tip might be for a candidate today that is searching for their next job. I mean, is it networking? Is it making sure their resume is accurate and complete? Is it give me a couple of tips that might help a listener that maybe might be in a search right now that might be able to help them?
Sure, happy to give tips. Just what you said, the networking piece is so important. How have they been utilizing their time with their networks? Are they doing any community or volunteer efforts? And what have they done? Maybe they got laid off during the COVID season. So if so, what were they doing with their time? Were they learning? Were they getting certified? Are they doing some volunteering in the community and making sure they have stories about those things that they can present or can add those to the resume? I also always tell people follow-up is priceless. Follow-up is so rare. Very few job candidates, I think, do it properly. And I think it's just because we all get busy and they forget to do the follow-up piece of it. But the candidates that follow up are the ones that are remembered and the ones that the employers will think, you know what, I really love that impression that person made. And then they followed up and sent this amazing link to an article, or they remembered something I told them during the interview process and they followed up and mentioned that. I'm impressed. So be thinking about your follow-up strategy and make sure that is the way you want it to be in order to be remembered.
Okay, those are fantastic tips. I love how you said share stories, because people they remember the stories. So if you can figure out a way to share that story to align with what you're trying to achieve. But the follow-up, okay, I want you to just kind of I want to go just a little bit deeper there. What does a good follow-up look like? Is it still writing a handwritten note? Is it LinkedIn? What does a follow-up look like?
It can be all of those. I mean, I think it's excellent to be on LinkedIn and maybe send a link to an article that references maybe the place where that person is that interviewed you, or something that came up, some issue that they're dealing with, that their current company's dealing with, an article that would reference that. It can also be a nice handwritten note, or it could be a small token gift with a note that gets delivered to their office the next day. I mean, think creative in terms of your follow-up. I wouldn't just send just a straight email. I mean, that's okay, but to me, that's just kind of plain. I would make sure that it's a little bit unique. It's something that adds value and reminds the employer that you really were listening to what they said.
And that is fantastic. I want to just touch on one other area too, because you mentioned LinkedIn, and I mentioned that I am currently finishing up a book that's going to be published in October, which I'm really excited about, called Life in Leadership Lane. And one of the chapters is around building your brand. And so I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts around building your brand. Like, do you think an employee brand is important, like for your team members? And then even more importantly, how about a candidate? You talked about this LinkedIn profile. That's probably part of their brand. Got any thoughts around building a brand?
I think, well, first of all, congratulations on your book. I cannot wait to get my hands on that, Bruce. That's great. I do. I think the brand is so important. And right now in the world that we live in, employers are looking for your digital footprint. They're looking to see who is that person? What do they like? What are they involved in? What groups are they involved in? What do they comment on? So yeah, I think that's really important to do that, to figure out, and you can do it based on figure out what you're passionate about. Maybe you love helping SPCA, or maybe you've got some charity work that doesn't even seem like it's connected to your career, but that would be something that you'd be passionate talking about, or passionate commenting on, or sharing articles about. So yeah, I think that's really important. And there's so many great mentors. You just got to do a search and you can see, wow, I really love how this person's branding looks and what they're doing to promote that. And you can share some of those ideas on your own.
I love how you use that. And I call that in the, one of the things I mentioned was you need to decide who you want to be. Right. And so when you mentioned, hey, find a mentor, find someone that aligns with how you want to be, and start trying to not necessarily copy them, but just kind of bring in some of the different things that they're doing and try to make that part of your brand. And oh man, that is so terrific. Oh, I love that. Hey, I want to ask you, so you've been with the company for a long time, and you mentioned back in 2019 you got this opportunity to now purchase the company. I'm just curious, like, did you always want that, number one, and number two, what drives you?
I've been asked that before. Did I always want to? And the answer is no. I really wasn't thinking about purchasing the company one day. I was thinking about how can I grow in my role? How can I grow as a leader? And then when I got the opportunity to take on the president role and then later the CEO role, then it started to occur to me, well, when the founder retires, what's next? What's next for me? What are we going to do? And I realized how compassionate I am about high profile and the team that I get to work with every day. And so just when the opportunity arose and he talked to me about buying the company, and it sounded like it was just the perfect timing for us. And my husband, Barry, he was on board 100% because he's one of my number one supporters. And he just said, yeah, let's do it. This is great. You've been in this business for so long. It's not like you're buying a business that you don't know anything about. You've really helped to grow this business, and you've got an incredible team of people around you. So let's go for it.
That is fantastic. Hey, I want to ask you one last question before I shift over to another area. You have an incredible team that you're leading. What about those that are on your team that say, hey, I want to keep growing, and one day I want to be Bronwyn? What tips do you share with not just your team, but anyone who's listening that wants to advance in their career and just continue to grow? What are a couple of things that you might share that they think about?
I love it when they ask me for those things, because my role is to support them in their growth. And so I have to get creative, because this is not a huge company with, 18 different positions that they could climb up the ladder. So we've got to find out what is it that they want to do and how can I support them. And what we've done over the past is we've had several people on our team that have wanted to take on leadership roles. And so we've supported them in association leadership roles. So they're stretching, they're growing, they're gaining more leadership strategy from the people in the associations and the board members that they're working with. And it's always come back towards a win-win-win, because we're increasing our network. We're getting, opportunity to meet and have long-term relationships with people like yourself, because we've been able to volunteer alongside you. And so for me, I try to find out where is it that they want to grow? How can I support their growth? Is it through some conferences that are coming up this year, or is it through some books or some coaching, or how can I support that track for them? And then we work on that together. And that's probably the most important thing I can do as a leader of high profile.
That I love that. I think about what you said earlier. You said, I wasn't really thinking about, purchasing the company or any of this. I was just trying to grow as a leader. And that's basically what you're saying, is saying you just keep focusing on your growth. Keep laying bricks, and one day you're going to look back and see the house you built. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Oh man, that is absolutely fantastic. I love that. Hey, I want to talk, you talked about, leading your team. I want to talk about leading Bronwyn. And one of the things I do like to pull out is, like, is there like a practice or a daily discipline that you have in your everyday that helps you stay on track?
I have kind of a crazy schedule, but the reason it works is my husband has the same one. So we are in sync on this, but we're probably the only people that I know that we're in bed by 8:30 at night every night. But here's why. We get up. He gets up at 3:30. I get up between 3:30 and 4. We both have, like, he goes straight to work out. I go straight to my reading, my quiet time. I have devotions. I journal a lot. And then I get my exercise in. So I have a certain schedule I stick to every morning, but it makes us have to get to bed early every night. And that's the way it works. But for me, it's just having those daily habits of knowing what starts my day off right. And if I start my day off without having my quiet time, without having any reading or reflection time, without any exercise, it's not going to be a 10+ day. So I really try to commit to that. And fortunately, as I said, my husband does the same thing. So it's our neighbors probably look at the house and say, why are all the lights on at 3:45 in the morning? But that's what we do.
Oh, I love that. Oh man. Well, one thing that I see is, what's a common thread for life and leadership, Lane, is that everyone seems to have a system, right? And everybody does things a little bit differently, but they do everything they do. They have a system for that. And I love that. I'm with your husband. I get up early and I work out, and and it's about winning the day and really quieting the mind. And I think that that really helped. Thank you for sharing that. I know that there's going to be some people out there right now that are listening that says, you know what, I'm going to pause for a second and think about what I'm doing. And maybe I need to shift lanes or try something different in my daily practice. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That means a lot. Hey, I want to ask you, before we shift to it's time to accelerate, I want to ask you a question around advice. And I want to ask you, have you ever been given some advice that was just so good you just find yourself sharing it with others?
Yeah, I was long ago, and I think it was probably from Zig Ziglar, but it was about looking at your inner circle and choosing your inner circle wisely. These people that are in your inner circle, your closest friends, your closest colleagues, are they supporting you? Are they saying, wow, Bronwyn, that's a big goal, and I know you can get there, and I'm going to help you get there? Or are they not? And so it's so important that we choose the people in our inner circle and cultivate those relationships, because those relationships are going to be there when we're having tough days, and they can pick us back up, and they can also help us propel forward. And so I think just having your own support system is so important. And a lot of people don't take the time to cultivate that, or they might allow somebody in that inner circle that's really pulling them down. And that's just a real disadvantage if you're doing that for a long period of time, is to have somebody that's not supporting you and lifting you up.
Yeah, it's so important to be surrounded by the right people to, lift you up. I call it be a lifter in your life. So that's fantastic. Hey, I wanted to ask you one other question around what I see in your leadership, knowing you for so long and just talking to different people, and that is the word empowerment. And you seem to be a leader that empowers your people. And I'm just wondering, like, if someone was listening right now and they, were thinking about how they were leading, I'm just wondering, like, where did that part come from? Was that something you learned to do? Was that something that or you learned from a conference? Where did you learn that? And how does that benefit you and your team?
Empowerment is so important, and it is something I learned from Jack Stafford, my mentor and business partner. He always said, we're going to hire the right people, we're going to hire decision makers, and we're going to let them make decisions. We're going to let them, because they know what the issues are, they know what the struggles are, and they also know what the solution is. We're going to empower them to do that. And so that's the culture we've tried to create, is to truly say, I don't want to be a micromanager. I don't want any of our leaders to be micromanagers. We want to just say, we believe in you. What do you want to do? What do you see as a solution for this idea? And make sure they're coming to the meeting, coming to the conversation with solutions, and not just, well, here's the problem, but they've already thought through, well, here's 2 or 3 solutions. Which one do you think is best? So that's something I learned a long time ago, and just continue to try to reinforce that, because I think that's how you bring out the best in people. And because of their experiences, because of their, I've got one recruiter, Amelie, she's been with us for over 25 years. She knows exactly how to take what her clients need and how to take care of them, and what the candidates need that she's dealing with, because she could do this, and she's done this for so long. And all she needs is the empowerment and the ability for someone to say, go do it, make it happen.
Yeah, whenever I'd written down the word empowerment as you were talking, that's all that keeps coming to my mind, is you are a very empowering leader. Hey, I want to ask you, I have one other question I do want to ask you real quick. And that is this, as I was getting ready for the show, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I saw where you had attended or was going to attend a goal setting, and I think it was a vision board workshop. Did you attend that? I'm curious.
I did. It was on Saturday, and Kathy from our team, we both attended it.
Well, so tell me just a little bit about that. First of all, I mean, you're a visionary leader. I mean, why do you need to go to a visionary board, workshop? And number 2, I know you're a goal setter. So why would you attend that? And what did maybe one thing you got out of it?
I am still trying to figure this out. I am still learning, Bruce. So that's why I attended it. And I also attended it because it's a new friend of mine. Her name is Delibra Wesley, and she's amazing. She used to be COO with Delta Companies. And so she's had a lot of years of experience in search. And she decided, she has had some amazing personal goals herself. And she decided that she wanted to teach people how to make vision boards. And both Callie and I have made vision boards before, but we thought, you know what, we're going to make one for this second half of the year, and then we're going to attend this session. And what was great, what I learned and took away from it, was she was talking about how we need to recalibrate some of our goals. Sometimes we're not on track with all of our goals, only some of them, and some of them need to be recalibrated because of whatever life hit us this year. Some things have happened and we haven't got that goal in place, or it's not on track yet. So we need to really have some time to reflect and figure out, all right, what are we going to do to make this happen this year? And maybe it's going to look a little bit different. So for me, it was an honor to get to hear her speak about it. I always love to talk to hear different speakers, hear their take on the goal setting process. And it's just so inspiring. And I hope I can learn, I learned something that I can share with somebody else, and maybe inspire somebody who's listening to this to put together their vision board. It could be a vision board for your fitness, or for your finances, or for your career, or for your future. That you can do it any way that you want to. But to me, how exciting to actually look at that when you get to work every day and see it, or put it in, a place in your home where you can see it, and it'll remind you what you're on track to accomplish this year.
Okay. Now I love every single thing about that. Number 1, I love that you're at the top and you're still continuously learning. Number 1, I love that. A never stop learning approach. And that's one thing that I see around high performers. They just always continue to learn. But number 2, I just posted something similar to that, a vision board on my Instagram. I need to print it out, actually put it in my office. And I'm going to have to go back and look at that and say, do I need to get granular there? Oh man, I love that. That has been so fantastic. Listen, I could talk to you about leadership all day long. Hey, I want to shift to the last part of the interview, and it's called "It's Time to Accelerate." So I'm going to ask you a few fun questions. And the first question I have for you is, would you rather read a book, or would you rather listen to a podcast?
I do both. And sometimes I was just thinking about the last 2 books I read, I also listened to them. So I like to do both, but I love to mark a book. So that's kind of if I only had one that I could do, I would mark inside the book. One tip I've got, Bruce, which I got to mention, is the first Friday book synopsis.
Okay.
For anybody listening, it's on the first Friday of every month. Randy Mayu, what he does is a synopsis of 2 top business books. And within 45 minutes, you've got the ingredients, the gist of these 2 business books, and they're always phenomenal leadership books. So I'd highly recommend that. It's just another great way to spend your time and learn.
So I have attended one of those. I need to do that again. I attended one, and I think I might have seen you there. I know I saw Callie there. Paige Luckemeyer went there, and we did the Dare to Lead with Brene Brown. It was fantastic. Okay, so I will put a link in the show notes. So if someone wants to go check that out, they can just click that link and check that out. I'm curious, you have any favorites you've read in the last 6 months? It just a book that
I did. Actually, Callie had our leadership team read this book, Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Rochelle. And Craig Rochelle has a leadership podcast, which I listen to pretty often also. So that was a really good one.
Yeah, he's actually the pastor that started Life Church.
Yes.
And he's phenomenal. I've listened to his podcast, so I'll put that in the show notes as well. I just like I mentioned earlier, I read The Coaching Habit, and there's 7 questions to help you be a better leader by asking questions. And so no, that's fantastic. I love that. Oh my gosh. Hey, I know that it's been a tough time for a lot of people, but it seems like great leaders are grateful leaders. And I would love to ask you what you're most grateful for.
I am truly most grateful for my faith, my friends, and dear family members. Really feel so fortunate to have family members that we love interacting with and get together with on a regular basis.
Yeah. It's a great time to be grateful. Hey, what are you most excited about as we kind of see like a little glimpse of, getting through this pandemic? What are you kind of excited for on the other side?
I'm really excited to grow our business. I'm excited that we're in a growth mode now and that we have recovered from the COVID year, and hopefully take those lessons, the challenges that we overcame, and say, all right, how do we do it now? How do we move forward and make some great things happen?
I'm excited for that too. And just getting out and actually just seeing people and giving a few high fives along the way. Definitely. Yeah. Hey, so, you're involved in a lot of different things. And so I would love to ask you, like, what energizes you?
It's really helping other people. It's helping, sharing an idea or something that I see in somebody else that I feel like that helps them develop and helps them grow. I'm on the board for a group called Success North Dallas Young Executives. And so it's all young executives, and we're a sponsor for that group. And to me, I just get jazzed up seeing what these young executives are doing and how they're growing, and just being a part of that is really energizing for me.
No, that's great. And, you said something earlier, and you mentioned it for candidates, and that was to try to figure out a way. It was like, we talked about follow-up, and you were talking about how, candidate might even find an article to send someone, something to differentiate them. And that's what you were talking about just now. And that's one thing that I've always tried to do too, is like when I go to a meeting or I go somewhere, I try to take that information and pass that on. It's kind of the reason why I'm doing this podcast, right? Just to continue to find ways to bring ideas to people. And for some reason that energizes me.
I understand that completely.
Okay, Bronwyn. Oh my gosh. I knew the time would fly, but I have one last question for you today. And that is, Bronwyn, 10 years older, is knocking at your door. And you're going to go answer that door. I would love to hear what Bronwyn 10 years older is going to say to you when you open that door.
Hopefully she'll say, wow, look at all these relationships you've got. This is pretty special. Let's keep growing them and cherishing them, because that's what it's all about. The relationships that we have, and truly the long-term relationships that we have. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like to use the term, your network is your net worth. And you are definitely driving in the leadership lane. I've admired your leadership since the day I met you, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Hey, if someone wanted to connect with you or learn more about High Profile, what would be the best way that they could connect with you?
They could call our main number, 972-991-7900, and ask for me. Or they can definitely send me an email or a LinkedIn invite, whatever is convenient for them. I would love to help any way that I can or be a resource.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Listen, I appreciate you being on the show today. I've learned so much more about you and about your team. And I know now why you are living life in the leadership lane. You've got an incredible team. And just want to wish you continued success as you continue to grow your organization and drive your mission, right? To continue to help people. And so for that, I say thank you. And most importantly, I appreciate your friendship, Bronwyn.
Appreciate you, Bruce. It was just so much fun getting to talk to you and be on your show. Thank you.
I cannot wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.